Okay, then we'll be beginning. This is a recorded webinar anyway, so anyone that can't make it in time, we'll just have and sent the link. Anyway, so welcome. My name is Nick Mikowski. I am the technical specialist with AD Instruments, and our webinar today is titled Engaging Students Online Using LT at Sydney University Medical School. Our guest speakers are Dr. Rosa Howard and Dr. Saeed Shokri. So a little bit background on our guest speakers today. So Dr. Rosa Howard is a senior lecturer and Year 1 coordinator at Sydney University Medical School. With background in medical sciences and PhD in cancer research, she has 12 years experience of teaching in pharmacology, and she's played a key role in the curriculum development of the new MD program, which was launched back in 2020. Dr. Saeed Shokri has experienced and dedicated lecturer in anatomical sciences since 2003. His areas of expertise include human anatomy, histology, embryology, and cell biology. He has actively contributed as a lecturer at the School of Rural Health in Dubbo and Orange, that's in New South Wales, Australia, since 2021. And because of his outstanding contributions, he's been promoted to the senior lecturer position since January of 2023. Now, before I pass it over to our Rosa to talk, and then say after that, I'll just briefly mention about our platform LT for those who are not aware of it. So LT itself is a cloud-based platform and it's developed by our company, AD Instruments in Dunedin, New Zealand. It's been around for over 30 years and we specialize in hardware and software for data acquisition. Initially, that's how it was developed. But that has evolved into content that was primarily in research, but has moved then hard software for education, which is going to be LT in what we're going to talk about today. So what is LT? That is a cloud-based platform that is used by educators from universities all around the world. The content is rich in life sciences, particularly in physiology, nursing, and medicine, but it has been growing into other fields such as chemistry, biology, and veterinary sciences. They combine interactive questions and ease of use for both the educators and students. It is being used in multiple years, and students are finding it very comforting and easy to use, and can be used as a tool for studying from previous years through the archiving processes that we can do in LT. LT itself not only can be acquired data through data acquisition, but throughout our core Power Lab, but they can use our LT sensors that have recently been introduced, which is simply a plug and play instrument, which helps with interactive learning with students as well.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'll talk about the developing content in the Cura Cloud for anatomy and how is the content integrated into the students' curriculum, and finally I will focus on the students' feedback with this content. It seems that Rosa is connecting. Yeah.
Yes.
I will stop sharing.
Hi, Rosa.
Hi, my computer decided to shut down, didn't it?
That's okay.
Hey, do you want to go and I'll jump in after? It's up to you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So developing content for the anatomy, the Cura Cloud. So for this purpose, anatomy lessons on LT. I've developed anatomy lessons on LT for both small and large cohort. So as you see here on the left image, we have 26 year 1 medicine students in Dubbo School of Rural Health. They are postgraduate students, and I've developed some lessons, anatomy lessons, as you see here. And this last semester, I also developed the anatomy lessons on LT for 455 year 1 sport physiotherapy occupational therapy students. They are undergrad students to School of Medical Sciences. So the point is that both small and large cohort anatomy lessons on ILT that I've developed, it's not mandatory, it's completely optional. So, however, most of the time, more than 50 students, 50% of students are interested in answering questions of the anatomy lessons on LT. So in this slide, I've chosen the muscles of the axial skeleton. It's a specific topic that I've designed for the BioS 1168 for physiotherapy, sport and exercise, a large cohort. The page 1, as you see, is about the learning outcomes, which is completely matched with the aims of the study of the curriculum, as you see on the left side. So the page 2 is about the class preparation. So before answering the questions, I ask the students to follow the resources. For example, they should watch the online videos, which is available in the Canvas. If they click this blue line, they will go directly to the Canvas and watch the online videos, and they can watch the Auckland's Video Atlas. And they also have access to the practical notes and worksheets in Canvas. Then after watching these videos and see the prac manuals and worksheets, they will be ready to answer the questions. So the page 3 is about the practical resources, practical class resources. So they have access to the online anatomy resources, some textbooks, some color atlas or Auckland anatomy atlas, Auckland's Video Atlas. And page 4 is about the session structure. For example, in this specific topic, I ask the students to focus on the back muscles, for example, head and neck muscles, etc. And as you see here, the page 5 out of 11 is about the back muscles. One of the most important type of question that the students are interested in is the drag and drop the labels in the menu on the left in the correct location. So they can drag and drop the labels in this specific part, and then as you see at the bottom left, the check answer, if they click the check answer, they can see which one of the answers they have done they are correct, which one are wrong, so they can have multiple attempts. And you can also see here the pictures that I just want to show you, the sources that I usually use. The 2D images is a theme teaching assistant. It's a Gilroy Atlas, which is available in the library of the UCED. And I usually off the labels, off the leaders, and take a screenshot and save it, and then put it on the Cura Cloud, and then ask the students to label it. The other type of questions that I use is the text questions, and again, the student can check the answer. And also, I designed the MCQ questions for students, and they can answer the MCQ multiple choice questions and then check answers to see is it correct or incorrect. And functional anatomy, sometimes I use the table questions, as you see here, for example, to determine which muscles do the hip flexion and hip extension, drag and drop the terms in the menu on the left in the correct location. So they can do it, and then again, they can check the answer. And I also use the clinical points or applied anatomy, as you see in this image, and radiological anatomy, sectional anatomy. And finally, I designed the surface anatomy at the end of the lesson and ask the students to answer the questions. And then I'm going to focus on the questionnaire that I designed for the students, and the students gave me great feedback. The first question was that, does the content of the Cura Cloud match the learning objectives? As you see in this graph, 95% mentioned yes, it does, and just only 5% mentioned yes to some extent. And the second question is, does activity in CuraCloud enable you to learn independently? 70% mentioned yes, it does always, and 30% mentioned yes to some extent. Does CuraCloud provide a safe study space for you to learn from your mistakes? 95% said yes, it does always. And does the current format of CuraCloud motivate you to complete answering all questions? 60% mentioned yes sometimes, and 35% mentioned no, it does not. And how much does answering anatomy questions on CuraCloud help you to identify the structures on the models and prosections, which is so important for us because the students at the end of the semester, they will be examined on the anatomy models and prosections. So as you see, 75% mentioned helpful, 25% mentioned very helpful. And do you like to have access to some videos on the models at the beginning of each page before starting to answer the questions? So just 80% mentioned yes, it would be very helpful. And 20% mentioned no, it's not necessary since we have access to online and pre-prac videos in Canvas. And the other question is, what type of questions do you prefer to answer on CuraCloud? And 40% mentioned drag and drop, and 30% are interested in multiple choice questions. Do you like access to instant feedback answers to the questions? 100% are interested in, and they mentioned yes, it's helpful. And do you like to read the short information which is provided to give you some clues before answering the questions? 70% mentioned yes, it's helpful. And which of the following format do you prefer to use? 60% are interested in 5 questions on each page with about the 10 pages. You know, sometimes we use more than 7 questions, and they should scroll down the page, and it could be boring. That's why I designed this question. And what type of images do you prefer to have in the questions? The 60% mentioned mixed images from the prosections, anatomy models, and atlases and textbooks, and 30% are interested in images from atlases and textbooks. And when do you prefer to use CuraCloud? And as you see, 45% mentioned after prac, and 30% mentioned pre-work. And I also provided some open-ended questions. One of them is this: what things worked well for you when using CuraCloud? So some of the students mentioned MCQ was like CAT, knowledge applied test questions. Using it as a revision and drag and drop worked well for them. Self-direction, and some students mentioned that I do not use it often, but when I use it for revision, it's great. The repetition and visual style worked well for them. And identifying things from several views consolidate my knowledge. So for example, I used from the posterior view, anterior, lateral, different views. They are interested in this items. And good revision. And the other question is, what things did not work well for you when using CuraCloud? So some students mentioned that extensive long answer questions, table questions, and drag and drop can be too easy. Might be better to mix the order of labels more. And short answer questions with no answer provided. So I'm not sure I did it right. So it's about I just summarized the designing, the content, and the feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Saeed. It's wonderful to see that you were able to develop your own content like that. And that's just an example where anyone can actually use not only our baseline content, but anything that they want, they can create their own. So thank you very much for that, Saeed.
No problem.
Okay, Rosa, pass it over to you. I'm currently set as a mute.
Is
Oh, yep.
that
Okay.
better?
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad. I had no idea what happened before, but thanks for your patience. So I'm going to talk about some effective strategies that I've used in with CuraCloud in the medical program for learning and engagement in a variety of settings. And I was mentioning earlier that and this is the important background just to kind of understand that the MD program is a postgraduate program, and the students aren't all necessarily at the same level when they start in terms of the basic science understanding. And also the program has a flipped classroom model. So together there is, with this, means that there is a bit of student self-directedness, and there is a need to actually help students, particularly with non-science backgrounds, as they transition into the MD program. So the MD program was launched in 2020 as a new program as a flipped classroom model. And in year one, there's 8 theme blocks. And this is an example of 1 week in a block, respiratory block. And you can see that everything kind of links towards a capstone activity at the end of the week, a team-based learning activity, which brings together the basic and clinical sciences that are taught in a variety of areas of the week to a case scenario. And we start the week, though, with an online foundationology course, which has basic science understanding. And then the students look at some online videos during the week, which is pre-recorded for them. And with this learning, they come to the in-person forums or lectures where they have a variety of teaching in the basic and clinical sciences and application at practicals and clinical school. So the team-based learning is the capstone of the week, which is the following Monday. And I use CuraCloud in a variety of places in year one, such as this online foundational knowledge course, practicals, and also team-based learning. So I'm going to focus first on what is this online foundational knowledge course, which was quite a large piece of work and a lot of fun for me to create. And this is to address the fact that we have some academically disadvantaged students in the cohort, about 20%. And the OFC, I'll call it the OFC from now on, was designed in a way that has a constructivist knowledge construction model with active learning, interactivity, some contextualization, and of course some humor and some fun to make it engaging, because this is an online platform, and they were doing this before they start the medical program. So it's self-directed, student can work at their own pace, it's supportive in nature, but not punitive, because the material does underpin and sometimes is explicitly assessed in some of the programmatic assessment that we have during the year. So there was 4 courses that I created, molecular cellular biology, physiology and anatomy, and the orientation course, which has some self-care and academic skills to help get them started in the medical program. And I used a Bloom's taxonomy framework when I was thinking about the design in the CuraCloud, where I was trying to engage a whole range of different learning and interactivity that covers all the different levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, from remembering, understanding, all the way up to creating. So the content delivery there was some written text animations that I created, gamification. There's a lot of checking understanding soon after the content is presented, so immediate feedback. Like Saeed mentioned, they do really love feedback on how they're going. And the gamification that covers all levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, the multiple choice questions, short answer questions, where they recall facts and ideas, explain ideas. Sometimes they annotate, applying information there, sorting by doing connection between ideas and using different interactivity that the platform has. And also they, the higher level, they construct process diagrams as part of some of the lessons. So here's an example of a landing page for the biology course with a number of lessons shown here. And the visual language I found was very important too. I like to make sure that visually it's also quite well set out and appealing. The interactivity I used was some of the, like this one here in the top left is an animation that I created with a character that speaks to the students. So translating some of the written content into some animations was really well received. And also here, like on the right, is some kind of process that the students have to recall the information they were given and then put in order the process, so in this instance, immunology. You know, some of the anatomy lessons, they have to annotate an X-ray, for example, and some of the other things that Saeed presented is also what I have in the online foundational knowledge course. And here on the right is some physiology and process or anatomy and how the blood flows through the system. And again, some more interactivity here in drag and drop and some various concepts that they're applying. So the key inquiry questions that we had was in evaluating the OFC in terms of engagement. How well engaged were they? And are there any academic outcomes or benefits related to the engagement in the OFC? And what we did was looked at engagement data that were correlated with 11 individual assessment tasks that they have to go do throughout the year in terms of their major exams in anatomy and histology, another 4 exams in the knowledge application test where they're tested on the basic and clinical skills. And also they have clinical assessments and reflection tasks. And what we found was that there was a positive correlation between engagement and assessment outcomes. So, you know, the more the students were engaged, there was an increased benefit in their assessment outcomes throughout the year, you know, up to 6% as with the biology and a little bit less with the physiology module compared to students who weren't engaged with the OFC. And we also explored motivation for engagement, like what kept the students motivated intrinsically and extrinsically, any task value, perception, and engagement that they had with the OFC. And how we determined that was the desire to achieve a high level or achieve better than other people were the types of motivations, but also just one's self-concept of one's ability and ability to achieve, you know, good outcomes and avoid failure and attain you know, some, I guess, you know, good grounding and understanding in the content. We used some surveys and focus groups to determine their motivations. And what we found was that there was a perception of value add by of the LT Cura Cloud lessons and in preparing them for the OFC, for the SMP, the medical program, but also throughout the year as they continue to engage with many of the other lessons. The design they really enjoyed in that they felt supported and prepared, and they self-evaluated judgment. So they knew when they did something wrong because the activities actually told them as such without having someone else tell them. But that helped motivate them, a lot of the students. The active learning opportunities were valuable in checking understanding, and they enjoyed the variety of presentations, which I tried to do in every lesson, a number of different types of presentations in terms of interactivity. They also used the quiz material as pre-assessment for when they were doing their assessments, just to check their learning and determine any gaps in their knowledge. And they loved to keep practicing and consistently testing themselves. Some of the feedback we got were, you know, I guess displayed here. The larger the word, the more it was prominent in their responses. So they loved the clarity, the variety. It gave them confidence, and it was well organized. So considering how a page is constructed and organized, and so it's not too crowded but is also very interactive, was something that they really liked. So the outcomes were the students were motivated and engaged, and there was an educational impact as well in terms of improving their assessment outcomes, and they really enjoyed the active learning opportunities. They found them quite valuable and in testing themselves. Another area that I use Cura Cloud is in the team-based learning, which I mentioned at the start. And you may have come across this in that it's an evidence-based collaborative student-centered teaching strategy where those students work in small groups, and before they meet with their group, they prepare by doing their flipped learning reading of the week's learning and do a quiz. And when they meet with their group, they redo that quiz and apply their knowledge and understanding through the case scenarios that we have for that particular week. And this is all also created in Cura Cloud. So, LT helps maintain their teamwork in that they come together and they log in together and they work together through the case and the various questions related to the trigger as they work through their clinical reasoning processes as well. So here's an example of some of the lessons, a particular case here. So they have their quiz at the start, the activity, and then they do some management at the end. And some of the quiz questions are, examples here, and the problem-solving case has some interactivity as well to maintain group engagement and discussion. And here's some more examples, some of the clinical material that they're learning, and also application of their understanding as it pertains to the particular case. We also include some audios and visuals. Here's an echo, for example, and a clinician explaining what that echocardiogram is all about, and also applying again some of their understanding in sorting activities. And that's all I have for you now. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Rosa. I'll just share my screen to show just the contact details, and I'm just going to throw up a poll as well. So there are, I guess, speakers and ADI team's contact details. I'm just going to send a quick poll here to see who would be interested in ADI rep contacting you. I'll just leave that up for a couple of minutes. But while that's up, yeah, please just type into the question and answer if you have questions for the guest speakers or in the chat. And that would be wonderful. Leave that up for a couple of minutes more. I'll probably start off there. Maybe you could tell me, I'll just ask a question first to Rose, then to Saeed. How was the learning curve you felt with the authoring the content the first time you looked into LT?
The learning curve for me was a steep learning curve, but I was really well supported by someone from the team from AD Instruments, and helped me work through some really core principles of online learning and using the platform in an effective way. And after that, I was really just limited by imagination. And so for me, it was not only was I enjoying the content, which is my area anyway, but also the fact that I was getting the opportunity to create. And so there's a lot of creativity in creating these pages and making them look nice and clear. And in that part of the process, hone your skills over some time. But I wouldn't say it took that long once I got, the basic understanding of what makes a good page and what makes a good lesson.
And over to you, Saeed.
Excuse me, what was the question, please?
Just your when you first started using CurriCloud, how did you feel like the learning curve was when you began authoring your own content?
Yeah, actually, I learned for the very first time from Rosa and from my supervisor, Animik. And it was really I was really interested in, but it was a little bit hard for me for the very first time to design the different things on CurriCloud, and received some feedback from students, and they really loved working and answering the questions. And then little by little, I learned different items and different things, and just improved designing the different pages. Yeah, I mean, for the very first time, it was so hard for me, but little by little, it got very good, and now I can design very fast and with a good quality if I compare with the first time that I started.
Yeah, that's absolutely right there, and it's wonderful content that we can see. I should also note that if anyone that does require assistance with authoring, they can always contact our ADI team, specifically me as well, and we can help with those authoring questions. So I'm not sure if you, Rose or Saeed, are familiar with Smart Sparrow, but we have one of the people have asked a question. Would you be able to advise how different or similar Smart Sparrow is compared to LT when it comes to adaptive feedback lesson platform?
Yes, so I've had a little bit of experience with Smart Sparrow. I wouldn't call myself an expert at all because I didn't really author in it, but I have seen it and engaged with it as one of the platforms I was looking at before I went with CurriCloud. And firstly, I think CurriCloud is much easier to author. It doesn't have the same kind of you're choosing a pathway depending on the answers. I mean, you can do that with LT, but it's a bit more difficult. But there is, I think Kira Cloud, the ease of authoring, the visual language, and the ability to create a lot of material, as well as applying it to practicals, that has in my opinion, a wider range of possibilities, and is more accessible to most people who are wanting to start authoring. Much easier.
Thank you there. Just still waiting on some more questions from our attendees. As mentioned, you can type it into the chat or into the Q&A. We'll just wait a couple more minutes there. In terms of just students studying, do they prefer just using Career Cloud over just a textbook? They have to revise for an exam?
I don't know if they prefer it. I think each student has their way of learning. For me, students who have a science background may not jump onto Career Cloud because what I was trying to achieve with the OFC, for example, was fundamental and assumed knowledge, and they may have started from a high level. But students who don't have a science background really love it and benefit and make sure that they do it even the holidays before they start a next theme block. So it really depends on the student and their preferred way of learning. So I would suggest it's one of the resources that we provide, and but I haven't done analytics to determine, who and what and all that, because students, create their notes. They also they asked me to remove all their answers and to test themselves again, which I can do. So it's everyone's different, and this speaks to a number of students, but I don't know exactly how many use it in that way. I don't look that closely at it because it's really a resource that students are invited to use, and it's there for them. The rest is up to them.
Okay, we have another question from Alexandra Webb. They're asking, students at our institution are not huge fans of the annotation activities and prefer drag and drop. Any tips on how you have enhanced student engagement with the annotation activities?
I think the annotation activities, they may not like it because that's harder. And so when you kind of give them something that challenges them a little bit out of their comfort zone, they may not use it as much. But the variety appeals to different people. The drag and drop is fine, but it's looking, the annotation is asking them to understand, recall, and apply usually more than say a drag and drop does. It's got a different purpose. So I guess it depends, thinking about what it is that you're teaching and what is the best way to assess that for the students. And sometimes some activities are better for assessing some things than other. So for example, physiology, I do processes and ask students to organize something in a logical sequence. And that makes a lot more sense than annotating something. Whereas if it's an image like the X-ray I showed, and they're becoming doctors, they need to be able to identify markings, then I'll give them an annotation to, draw on this and tell me where you find X, Y, and Z. So, considering what you're teaching, what is it, the outcome that you're wanting, and which is the best activity for that. So if it's, so I'm not sure if what you're, where you're kindly coming from and what you're trying to teach, but that may be something to consider. Yeah,
Alexandra's from ANU. Alexandra's from ANU. They also teaches medicine down there as well.
Oh, okay. Look, I'm happy to chat. Elsewhere if you like, we can email. But anything that stretches them a little bit more, they may kind of shy away from it. That's my experience. The same with team-based learning. We ask them to draw mechanistic diagrams, and it's like you've got to push them a little bit, but the outcomes are worth it.
And Alexandra says, thank you. Yes, agree. Quite often it is a more technical issue associated with the device being used.
Yeah, it can't do it effectively on a phone, and maybe not on tablets, but I'm not 100% sure. But if it's a tablet with a pen, it probably work quite well. If you've got a mouse, it's not as good as if except if you had a pen. But they have to be okay with it not being a perfect circle or a perfect line or whatever, but you can type fairly quickly, fairly easily. So sometimes, yeah, it depends on the device.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And it looks like that is, we have no more questions. We've got a shy group, that's okay. Maybe they can send an email to you, Rosa or Saeed, if you have any other questions, and then follow up. As mentioned, this webinar has been recorded. We will send it to all that has been registered. And thank you very much, Rosa. Thank you very much, Saeed, for your wonderful presentations. And thank you everyone for attending. So we'll leave it there, and you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Thanks.